Sheriff Todd Baxter, when you're asked by an employee at the United States Department of Justice, how is it a crime for Christopher Chichester at 26 Sanders Farm Drive to exit his residence, stand on 26 Sanders Farm Drive where he lives, tell a man on a tractor from Broccolo Tree and Lawn Care that nobody owns the land next to his residence, and walk back into his house? When you're asked by this employee at the United States Department of Justice how that achieves any criminal behavior, what's your response? Because in Delusional Baxter world, that's criminal contempt second, because of $67,000 Shannon Meyer. Fire, $67,000 Shannon Meyer. When you're asked, Sheriff Todd Baxter, by an employee of the United States Department of Justice, what's the name of the human being Christopher Chichester was harassing sitting in the back seat of a Monroe County Sheriff's Office vehicle? What's your response? When you're asked by an employee at the United States Department of Justice, how does $79,000 Andrew Reality charge Christopher Chichester with harassment second after his head is snapped back at the gym, and then he's told to wait in the back seat of Andrew Reality's Monroe County Sheriff's Office vehicle after Jermaine Benman snaps his head back at the gym? Who is Chris Chichester harassing? How do you answer that question, Sheriff Todd Baxter? How do you answer the question? How does Andrew Reality charge Christopher Chichester with harassment second when there is no victim? How is that question answered? When you're asked by an employee at the United States Department of Justice, why are you concocting crimes for Christopher Chichester? How do you answer that question? When you're asked, Sheriff Todd Baxter, why did your two employees, one of which is Don Benedetto, walk onto the private property across the street from Christopher Chichester's residence at 26 Sanders Farm Drive on August 30th and wait for him to come out of the residence? And why were there 5 of your employees here at 26 Sanders Farm Drive that night for Christopher Chichester? Why are your employees at the residence? When you're asked by an employee of the United States Department of Justice, why are your employees stalking Christopher Chichester on August 30th? What's your answer? When you're asked, Sheriff Todd Baxter, why did your employees leave and run toward Christopher Chichester, leave the private property of his neighbor and run toward Christopher Chichester after he's exiting his residence? He turns around and runs away, runs up his back porch, grabs a hammer next to his bicycle. Your employee grabs his arm, the hammer goes up, he pulls away and runs back into his residence. When you're asked by an employee at the United States Department of Justice, Sheriff Todd Baxter, how is Chris Chichester committing a felony when he's running away from your employees? How is Chris Chichester committing a felony when he's running away from your employees onto his back porch? How is Christopher Chichester committing a felony when your employee grabs his arm and the hammer he just grabbed goes up? How do you answer these questions? They can't be answered because it's the lunatic fringe. Your bald head cannot answer those questions. It is not a crime to walk outside, stand here for 30 seconds and tell a guy in his tractor that nobody owns that land next to his residence. 5 Shannon Meyer. Harassment second, where there is no victim, where there's not a human being I'm harassing. I've never harassed anyone in my life, you bald-headed criminal. Fire Andrew Reality. How am I committing a felony on my back porch? Did Don Benedetto go back to your Jonestown? Is he the one that filed this felony? What's the names? This is, again, evidence of why you're Jonestown, why you're a Jonestown Kool-Aid drinker, why your employees are criminals, and why you're a bald-headed criminal. What are their names? Do I have the right, as an innocent man and a free American, to know the name of your two employees that concocted a felony for me in my back porch? And the answer is yes. The answer from you is no, because you want your employees to hide behind that craven anonymity. That's what you want them to do. You want to be able to file these charges, these concoctions upon me and against me, and then refuse to identify the names of these two disgusting, repulsive, pathetic, bankrupt employees that should be fired immediately. Fire Andrew Reale, fire Shannon Meyer, fire Don Benedetto, and what's the name of these employees? Then you will refuse to tell me every time. So, when you're asked, Todd Baxter, why did $91,000 Lee LaRoque leave her blue gloves behind in Christopher Chichester's residence? And why is Lee LaRoque in Christopher Chichester's residence without a document that's a search warrant that says search warrant? Because this is not a search warrant. How do you answer that question for the United States Department of Justice? When you're asked, Sheriff Todd Baxter, by an employee at the United States Department of Justice, how did Lee LaRoque get into Christopher Chichester's residence with a document Paula Metzler typed in Penfield Town Court that says search warrant, that's not a search warrant, and handed it to Lee LaRoque, and she called his landlords, and that's how Lee LaRoque gets into his residence? How is that answered, Sheriff Todd Baxter? What are you doing, Lee LaRoque, walking around with a document typed by Paula Metzler in Penfield Town Court that says search warrant, that's not a search warrant? How do you answer that, Lee LaRoque? If you, Lee LaRoque, are interviewed by an employee at the United States Department of Justice, and this employee at the United States Department of Justice says to you, Lee LaRoque, did Paula Metzler type this search warrant that's not a search warrant in her library courtroom and handed it to you, and then you use that document to contact his landlords, that's not a search warrant, to get into his residence? How do you answer that question, Lee LaRoque? When you were asked by an employee at the United States Department of Justice, bald-headed fascist stooge Todd Baxter, why you're coming to his residence to demand his dog when all he's doing is walking his dog the same way for 7 years and 4,000 times. When this employee at the United States Department of Justice says to you, Sheriff Todd Baxter, Christopher Chichester has walked his dog for 4,000 times in 7 years, and he informs us that he adopted his dog from Lollipop Farm Humane Society. And the reason why he was able to adopt his dog is he passed a background check and established his character to adopt the dog. So why are you showing up to his residence to demand his dog? Because Layla Kumar and Nayraj Shah called your office and demanded that they go to his residence and seize his dog. What are you doing at the house of a free man and a free citizen and a free American demanding his dog when he's walking his dog the same way for 7 years and 4,000 times? How do you answer that question for an employee at the United States Department of Justice, you bald-headed psychopath? So, when you, King of New York A #1 Sandra Doorley, are asked by an employee at the United States Department of Justice, what's the name of your prosecutor that stands in Penfield Town Court before John P. Lomenzo Jr., while Christopher Chichester has to answer concoctions for harassment, second, and criminal contempt, and doesn't talk? When you're asked, Sandra Doorley, identify the assistant district attorney at the Monroe County Sheriff's Office who stands in total silence in the Soviet Union show trial of Chris Chichester in Penfield Town Court for John P. Lomenzo Jr. as he's pronounced guilty, without the prosecutor talking. When you're asked, Sandra Doorley, for the name of that female employee at the Monroe County District Attorney's Office who stands there in total silence, what's the answer? What's her name, Sandra Doorley? When you're asked, Sandra Doorley, the name of the 5'2" three-piece suit boy who also stands in Penfield Town Court before bald-headed wig-wearing Paula Metzler and also doesn't talk, what's the answer? You'll have to answer these questions because of what's happened to me, because of this fanaticism that has descended upon me. How many times will I have to demand those two names? I demanded them. This is on January 9th. Do you know what today's date is? Do I have to tell you? It's the first week in February. Documentation for the case for Christopher Chichester for John P. Lomenzo Jr. Penfield Town Court. What is the name of the prosecutor? Sandra Doorley. when the United States Department of Justice asks you to identify this female assistant district attorney who stands in Pemberton Town Court and doesn't talk, doesn't make an argument, doesn't make a case, what are you going to say, Sandra Doorley? Documentation for the case of Christopher Chichester for Paula Metzer in Pemberton Town Court. What is the name of the prosecutor, Sandra Doorley? When you're asked by an employee at the United States Department of Justice the name of this male assistant district attorney who doesn't talk, doesn't make an argument, doesn't make a case, what's your response, Sandra Doorley? Is it going to be deer in the headlights? Are you going to be thinking about switching parties again? Do you know what party you're supposed to be in? District Attorney Sandra Doorley? Do you know what party you're supposed to be in? Todd Baxter? So, when you're asked, Sheriff Todd Baxter, by an employee at the New York State Controller's Office, why you pay 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 employees on this one page $100,000 or more, what's your answer? How do you justify 9 employees making $100,000 or more, including 3 in a row here? John R. Kennedy, $110,868. James McGowan, $110,868. Dale Earn, $110,868. When you're asked, why do those 3 employees make the exact same salary? By the controller of the state of New York. What's your response? And that's why I need to be audited. So when you are audited, do you, Todd Baxter, believe that the controller of the state of New York will discover unethical practices? Do you, Todd Baxter, believe that the controller of the state of New York will discover illegal practices? What do you think about the controller auditing you, John R. Kennedy, James McGowan, and Dale Earn? And do you get together, the 3 stooges there, making $110,868? You, John R. Kennedy, James McGowan, and Dale Earn are Sheriff Todd Baxter's $110,868 3 stooges. Now, Sandra, at the district attorney's office, I must say, Sandra, you are just uncommonly beautiful here in this photograph here. I must compliment you on your ravishing appearance, and I'd like to go shopping with you the next time you pick out a Donna Karan here, because I'm just really in awe of your uncommon beauty there, honey. So, and Sandra, when you're asked by the controller of the state of New York why you pay Perry Duckles $129,525, and he refuses to tell Christopher Chichester the name of the 2 assistant district attorneys, first before John P. Lomenzo Jr., next with Paula C. Metzer, who don't talk. What's your response, King of New York, game number 1, Sandra Doorley? And in reviewing the salaries here, if you're asked, King of New York, game number 1, Sandra Doorley, what does Mark Monahan do at the district attorney's office to be paid $123,817? And if you're asked by the controller of New York, what the hell do you do, King of New York, A number 1, Sandra Doorley, for $203,089? And when you're asked, King of New York, A number 1, Sandra Doorley, does a prosecutor talk in court? What's your response, King of New York, A number 1, Sandra Doorley? So, bald-headed, wig-wearing Paula Metzer, James C. Mully Jr., this attached. The name, charge, and sentence of every defendant in Pemberton Town Court for John P. Lomenzo Jr., James C. Mully Jr., Paula Metzer, 10-plus times since December 16th to receive this. You can receive this from me relentlessly with the date updated to reflect the date I send it. But you haven't. You're refusing. That's because guilty, 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 guilty. Everybody's guilty in Pemberton Town Court. How do you answer bald-headed, wig-wearing Paula Metzer and James P. Mully Jr. when you're asked by an employee at the United States Department of Justice, give us the name of 1 American acquitted in Pemberton Town Court? How do you answer that question? Because no one's acquitted. Everybody's guilty. Isn't that right? Bald-headed, wig-wearing Paula Metzer and James P. Mully Jr. So, if you're asked, Todd, what the hell are your employees always doing at Wegmans? Why do you have your vehicles alongside a private business owned by Danny and Colleen Wegman? Because he is one of them driving right by Wegmans with the Wegmans sign right there. How do you answer that? When they're just sitting there doing nothing. You should do whatever the hell you want in Monroe County. Lee LaRoque, proof by affidavit. When you're asked, Lee LaRoque, by an employee at the United States Department of Justice to produce this proof by affidavit to get into my residence, what's your answer? When an employee at the United States Department of Justice asks you, $91,000 Lee LaRoque, where's the proof by affidavit that gets you into Christopher Chichester's house where you could go berserk, go to his father's dresser, take all the papers he keeps downstairs, throw them on the floor, 500 plus papers on the floor, go through everything in the basement, the first floor, the second floor, pull all the cabinets out, take his military uniform from the 101st Airborne Division, his dress screens, you put them on the floor and don't put them, hang them back up in the closet. Where's the proof by affidavit to get into his residence and destroy his residence and go nuts? There's that proof by affidavit. Lee LaRoque. How do you answer that question? When you were asked, Sheriff Todd Baxter, by an employee at the United States Department of Justice, why did you put a camera, also called a surveillance device, on 2025 Penview Road for one innocent American? Why did you buy this camera, also called a surveillance device, and put it on 2025 Penview Road and lie about it? And when you were asked by an employee at the United States Department of Justice, bald-headed, party-switching, fascist stooge Todd Baxter, why did your employees like Michael Radman, Kathleen Millen, William Tadeo, and Scott Alberti call Lindsey Barron of the Monroe County Office of Mental Health to come to his residence with the Monroe County Sheriff Office employee when he described a device you bought as a surveillance device accurately? What are you doing, Sheriff Todd Baxter, calling an employee of the Monroe County Office of Mental Health to come to his residence when you're the one that bought a surveillance device for 2025 Penview Road specifically for him? This is the sick lunatic fringe. You are the sick lunatic fringe, Todd Baxter. How is that answered? How are any of these questions answered? The sick lunatic fringe defines itself, and it can't be answered. That's why you're refusing to answer. So, you can walk through his parking lot. Todd Baxter and Sandra Doorley not be arrested. Why is that? Are you a specially protected American that I'm not? Why can't you, Todd Baxter, walk through his parking lot? If you, Todd Baxter, left 130 South Plymouth Avenue and walked through his parking lot, you're not going to be arrested for one of your public employees. Why? If you, Sandra Doorley, left 47 South Fitzhugh in Rochester and walked through his parking lot, you wouldn't be arrested. Why? Are your civil and constitutional rights different than mine? You, $89,000 Eleanor Biggers at the Monroe County District Attorney's Office. You, $89,461 Eleanor Biggers. You, Eleanor Biggers, at the District Attorney's Office can walk through his parking lot without being arrested. Why is that, Eleanor? $78,715 Matthew P. McBride. You, Matthew P. McBride, can walk through his parking lot at the Monroe County Sheriff's Office without being arrested. Why is that, Matthew? Does your citizenship attain a status that mine doesn't? You, Ryan Fisher, while you were in Atlanta, Georgia, when you flew home from Atlanta, Georgia, you could walk through his parking lot without being arrested. You get off the plane in Rochester, you get in your vehicle and you stop at Sanders Farm Drive, you can walk through his parking lot without being arrested. Why is that, Ryan Fisher? Every one of you Monroe County Sheriff Office employees, all 10 of you underwater in the pool right now, all 10 of you right here can walk through his parking lot without being arrested. Why? Sick lunatic fringe, you bald-headed criminal. And you're coming from it. Paul, I'm not to pay attention. I will never go into Penfield Town Court. I don't care what you send here. And if I'm in there, I'll have to be forcibly deposited, and I will scream at you in the most ferocious way, at you and over you. I don't care about being held in contempt. I don't care about any type of criminal charge, and it will be concocted in Penfield Town Court. I do not give a fuck. I will scream at you and over you in the most ferocious way to prevent you from talking. So, the law's a joke to you. Paul Metzer, James P. Mully Jr., the law is a joke to you. Daniel DeLouse III is a child rapist in Penfield, and your disgusting predecessor, Paul C. Metzler, freed him. This is a real criminal, a real crime. Just because I'm an innocent man, I don't believe everybody's innocent. And there are witnesses on Annatel Luster off a 5 Mile line that see him trying to entice children into his vehicle. A real rapist. He's the George Costanza of Monroe County, where the opposite is the truth. The guilty are innocent, the innocent are guilty. So, how am I defending on a piece of paper? How many times do I have to ask this? Eliminate this accusatory instrument. Todd Baxter and Sandra Doorley. That the defendant says right there. It's not written. That the defendant. Accusatory instrument. Why does this document exist? I've said this now 50 plus times, 100 plus times. I lost track how many times. That the defendant on the above date location at approximately 1440 hours did knowingly enter, remain unlawfully in upon the premises 2041 Penfield, New York, by walk through the parking lot after being told by certified mail by police to not allow the property. Lie, lie, lie. Everything in there is a lie. So, Todd Baxter and Sandra Doorley, this is a blank Freedom of Information law. I will use this relentlessly to demand information from you, and you, Sheriff Todd Baxter, and you, Sandra Doorley, will refuse to comply with the law every single time, because you, Sheriff Todd Baxter, and you, District Attorney Sandra Doorley, are above the law.